Today, we're going to talk about something a lot of us feel, but, well, we rarely talk about it. It's the way our past seems to come rushing back, especially in our later years. You know what I mean. That uninvited memory that just pops into your head during a quiet moment, a decision you made decades ago that suddenly feels so vivid, so sharp, it's like it happened this morning. We're going to unpack why that happens, what it really means, and most importantly, how we can learn to take what feels like this heavy, chaotic burden and turn it into a source of real strength, clarity, and peace.
You know, if you're over 60, this probably sounds intensely familiar. It happens in the quiet moments, doesn't it? Maybe you're driving or just trying to fall asleep. And then, bam, a memory of a career mistake from 1985 or the sting of a relationship that ended ages ago suddenly feels as sharp and present as if it happened yesterday. You might even feel that same knot in your stomach, that same flush of embarrassment. But I need to be crystal clear about this. This is not just you. It is not a sign of weakness. It's not a personal failing. It's a universal biological process that your brain is actually supposed to be doing.
So let's dive in, shall we? We're going to start by really understanding what's behind this midnight audit in the brain. Then we'll get into the core psychological challenge of this life stage. From there, we'll learn how to become the lead editor of our own life story. We'll even get a practical protocol for peace to work with. And we'll see this whole thing as a form of mastery. And finally, we'll talk about how to lead our lives with a brand new sense of clarity that we've truly earned.
Okay, so what is really going on when these old memories bubble up with so much force? Well, it turns out it's not random at all, and it's definitely not a sign that you're stuck. It's a highly organized, systematic review, and it's being launched by your own brain. You can almost picture it like a master archivist who's finally got the time and the perspective to go through every single file looking for papers that were tucked away unresolved. This isn't a bug in your system, it's a feature of a mature mind.
This whole phenomenon has a name, the life review process. And the most important phrase here is biological imperative. That means this isn't a flaw. It's something your brain is literally designed to do. See, for most of your life, your brain was all about moving forward, building a career, raising a family, planning for the future. But now, with a little more perspective, its main job kind of shifts. It's not just random remembering. It's a full-on, systematic audit of your life, pulling up all these old, unresolved files and basically demanding that they be integrated into one coherent story.
So, here's the crucial point. We have got to reframe this experience. It's so easy to just label it as dwelling on the past, right? But that's a really passive way to describe what is a very active process. This is a neurological demand for integration. Your brain is actively working to resolve what you could call biographical friction. Those points in your life story that feel messy, painful, or just plain out of character. It's trying to smooth them out, understand them, and ultimately transform them into narrative wisdom, a story that actually makes sense as a whole.
And this internal audit, it isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's actually part of a really well-documented stage of human development. It's what presents the fundamental psychological challenge of our later years. This whole process is the engine that's driving the central question of this chapter of our lives.
Developmental psychology has a name for this stage. It's called integrity versus despair. It's the final chapter in our growth. The main task is to look back on the totality of our life, the wins, the losses, the joy, the pain, and decide, did it all make sense? Now, getting to a sense of integrity doesn't mean you lived a perfect life. Not at all. It means you can look back and accept your one unique life as meaningful and whole. Despair, on the other hand, is that sinking feeling that it was all just a series of random, meaningless events and now time is running out. Your brain's life review? Well, that's the engine trying to push you toward integrity.
And what's really fascinating here is that your brain is actually wired to help you succeed in this. First, there's something called the Autobiographical Memory Shift. This is where your brain naturally starts to move away from remembering the sharp, painful details of a trauma and toward understanding its overall gist and meaning. This is helped by the positivity effect, which is our natural, documented tendency to remember positive stuff more easily as we get older. But, and it's a big but, there's a major roadblock: narrative rigidity. That's the habit of telling ourselves the same old failure story for decades until it feels like a fact. It's that one story about yourself. I was always bad with money, or I never finish what I start. That's become so rehearsed, it feels like the absolute truth.
So this presents us with two very clear paths. The first one is regret-based recall. This is where we're stuck asking, what if? The past feels like this messy list of failures, and we feel like a character who's just trapped in the drama, replaying the same scenes over and over. This leads to something psychologists call cognitive task saturation. Basically, so much of your mental energy is being spent on fighting with the past, there's none left for today. The goal is to get to the second path, wisdom-based synthesis. Here the question changes. It becomes, what now? Given everything I went through, what did I learn? The past becomes a resource, not a burden. You shift from being a character to becoming the lead editor of your life story, and that's how you build true biographical integrity.
And honestly, this is the single most powerful shift in perspective you can possibly make. It's a move from being passive to being in control, from feeling like a victim of your own history to becoming the author of its meaning. Think about it. An actor just says the lines they're given, but the editor decides which scenes make the final cut, how they're framed, and what the story is really about. This isn't about changing what happened, it's about changing what it means.
So, the big question is, how do we step into this powerful new role? How do we actually move from being an actor in the drama, all caught up in the emotion of the scene, to being the one in the editor's chair, with the perspective and the power to shape the final story? Well, it all starts with understanding where your true power lies right now. In this stage of life, meaning is the new currency. Your ultimate power is what we call biographical integrity, and that is your absolute sovereign right to define the meaning of your own life's events. Nobody else can do this for you. Not your parents, not your ex-spouses, not your old bosses. They do not get the final say. Your life story is a living document, and you are the one holding the red pen, the one with power over its final interpretation. And the benefits of taking on this role as editor? They are immense. Chronic regret is a major cause of late-life stress, and we know that stress has documented impacts on our physical health. So by actively editing your narrative, you literally reduce that stress. You reclaim power from the heavy weight of old shame. You consciously shift the focus of your story from a conclusion of "I failed" to an ongoing process of "I learned." And this naturally lowers that nagging existential anxiety and builds a deep, unshakable self-respect, because a life well lived is ultimately a life well interpreted.
All right, let's get practical. It's one thing to understand the concept, but it's another thing entirely to apply it. So we're going to walk through a 5-step framework that you can use to put these ideas to work safely and effectively. And I want you to think of these not as just journaling tips, but as tools for identity reconstruction. This is the real, hands-on work of becoming the editor. Okay, this is the narrative integration protocol. We're going to go through each of these steps one by one, and they're designed to be your identity defense systems, creating these behavioral scaffolds that protect you from shame and keep you in the driver's seat of your own mind. These are practical, repeatable actions that help you do this really profound work. So the first tool is the third-person audit. Here's what you do. Take a difficult memory, one that keeps coming up, and write it down. But, and here's the key, you write about it as if it happened to somebody else. Use their name or just he or she. So instead of, "I felt so foolish when my business failed," you write, "He felt so foolish when his business failed." This little technique is called self-distancing, and it is incredibly powerful. It allows the logical, analytical part of your brain to get involved, letting you see the whole situation, the context, and the lessons, instead of just reliving the emotional pain.
Next up, we're going to combine two really powerful tools. First is pivot point identification. You look at that same regret and you find just one positive quality, just one that you developed because of it. Did that painful bankruptcy teach you real financial caution? Did that awful divorce teach you empathy? This turns what feels like dead weight into actual functional wisdom. Then you apply the compassion standard. This is critical. You have to stop judging your 30-year-old self with your 60-year-old brain. You have to ask yourself, what did that person not know yet? I mean, you wouldn't judge a child for not knowing calculus. You have to extend that same grace to your younger self who is operating with way less data and way less wisdom.
And our final two tools, they focus on closure and reframing. The forgiveness release is a symbolic act. You write a letter to clear the air. It could be to yourself, could be to someone else, and you get everything out. Don't hold back. Then, you destroy it. Burn it safely, shred it, tear it into 100 pieces. This sends a really powerful signal to your brain that this chapter is officially closed. Finally, the legacy headline. Look back at the difficult decades of your life and give each one a new, empowering title. Maybe the decade of a painful divorce wasn't the lost years, but the decade of forging resilience. This reclaims the entire era. Now, this whole process, which I know can feel really difficult, it's not a burden. It's not a sign of decline. It is, in fact, a sign of profound cognitive strength and maturity. It's the ultimate final project of a well-lived life, and it's one that younger minds are simply not equipped to handle.
Please, I really want you to hear this. Those uninvited memories are not a symptom of you getting old. They are a sign of advanced cognitive maturity. Your brain now has enough data, enough perspective, to do the sophisticated work of synthesis, of pulling all the different threads of a lifetime together into a single, meaningful tapestry. You are not declining, you are integrating. In fact, research shows that seniors who actively engage in this kind of reflective, narrative work are consistently the happiest, most resilient, and most fulfilled people out there.
And this is the reward for all this work. For decades, you were just collecting the data points of a human life. The successes, the failures, the loves, the losses. It was all just happening, one thing after another. But now, with the wisdom of perspective, you have the unique privilege of stepping back to see the masterpiece those data points created. It might not be a perfect piece, but it is complex, it is unique, and it is yours.
So let's wrap this up with the single biggest lesson from all of this and a gentle but really powerful challenge for you to take forward. This is where you can start to put this all into practice today.
Okay, here is your challenge. In the next 24 hours, just one day, I want you to identify one nagging regret. It doesn't have to be the biggest one in your life. And then, using the tools we've talked about, find just one way it made you a wiser or a kinder or a stronger or a more empathetic person today. The goal isn't to erase the regret, it's to find the value that's hidden inside it. Because when you find the value, you integrate the memory. And when you integrate the memory, you release the weight.
You are the author, not the victim of your own history. If the story you've been telling yourself about your life makes you feel small, then that story needs an edit. You are the sovereign manager of your own identity. So, audit the memory, anchor the meaning, and lead the rest of your life with the profound clarity that you have so deeply and rightly earned.